Each year, the SIIA and a committee of our members reviews a number of nominations that come in from young, innovative cloud companies. And this year we have selected 4 that we call our next generation in the cloud companies. So you're going to hear from each of them today individually and then as a group with some moderated Q&A. And I'm going to introduce our moderator, take it from here, and that is Lars Leckie, who is the managing director at Hummer Winblad Venture Partners. So he's certainly well versed with the young entrepreneurs in this area. Lars?
Thanks, Rihanna. So we have the dubious distinction of making you late for lunch. I apologize for that. We'll do our best to keep rolling through and get you guys out there in time. We're going to talk a little bit about the next generation of cloud here, and I'm going to start off by asking our panel members to give a quick background of sort of who they are, how they came to be in the cloud, and just a little bit about their company. We'll dig in on sort of the topic of the next generation of cloud after the introductions. Okay. I think you can probably sit there.
For a clicker. Listen here. There we go. Great. So let me just see if I can get this to do the right thing. So I just want to talk a little bit about NuoDB. We're really the first elastically scalable database system. And as we'll go through in the next couple of minutes, we'll describe why that's an extremely important thing in terms of where the cloud is going. Databases to date have not, in fact, been elastically scalable, and the cloud, after all, is all about elastic scalability. What you see here is actually a recommendation on how to deploy current generation relational database systems in support of something like a small Facebook or something like that. It's actually very ugly. What you see is a system that's sharded. That's a very bad idea. It's got master-slave replication. That's a worse idea. It's got master-master replication, which is not a very good idea. It's got caches in front of it. It's a very fragile kind of a system, and this is the state of the art that we have today. What we're going to need for cloud databases is a list of things, and I'll just take you through some of them. The first is elastic scalability, and what I mean by that is on-demand capacity in your database. So you get some kind of spike in your workload, I don't know, you get mentioned in the Wall Street Journal or something like that happens, you need to have a database system that you just add more machines and it goes faster. Don't need a bigger machine, don't need anything else, just add machines, it goes faster. Take the machines away, you don't lose no data. That's called elastic scalability. That's the thing that, as I say, doesn't exist today in databases, and it's for good architectural reasons. Second thing, which is also required on the cloud, is that people are wanting to run large numbers of databases on small numbers of machines and share those machines in some kind of intelligent and optimal way. We can call that multi-tenancy, by the way. That word is used in multiple different ways. I'm referring here particularly to the idea that databases can share machines dynamically and be reallocated all the time. You can't do that with the current crop of databases. Thirdly, you've got a requirement for 100% uptime. I'm talking about databases that can run for the next 10 years and never have to come down. And of course, something will fail in those 10 years. Of course, you're going to want to upgrade the hardware. You're going to want to upgrade the operating system. You're going to want to upgrade the database system. You're going to want to change the schema of the database and yet never take it down. Can you do that with existing databases? No. And yet that's a cloud requirement. You need to run in multiple locations at the same time with 100% consistent data. This is a fundamental requirement of the cloud. All major cloud systems are wanting to run globally with follow-the-sun kinds of capabilities. You need to be able to have what they call an active-active database. That thing does not exist today. We need that for the cloud. And lastly, of the 5 that I want to mention today is that if the cloud is anything in the long run, it's about self-optimization and automated stuff, and about very, very low database administration. If you look at the current costs, the life cycle costs of a database system, most of it is in people. And so very low database administration, you don't have that today. What we need is a big idea. What we need is to say the 30-year-old architecture that exists in all of the database systems today has served us well. It's a fantastic thing, but it doesn't work on the cloud. We need a big idea. And let me introduce you to my co-founder, Jim Starkey. Jim was the architect behind some of DEC's database products 30 years ago. He's been the inventor of things like blobs and MVCC and other things that you'll be familiar with if you're a database person. Jim had this big idea, and what I'm here to tell you today is that the elastically scalable database does exist. Long list of things that it can do. I don't have time today to go into it, but these problems are solved, and we're going to be talking about it a lot more when we launch the product later this year. Come and see us in the exhibit hall later. Thank you.
Pass the baton along.
All right. I'm not sure if you have these in order, but we're Resumator. Wow. Way to go, AV guys. Hi, everybody. I'm Charlton. I'm the founder and CEO, as I try to figure out exactly how this works next, of a software company out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania called the Resumator. Long story short, what we're trying to do is we're basically a virtual company. All of our services, all of our technology is in the cloud. And we're using the cloud to be able to try to build the most scalable small business HR platform that anyone can create. And the way we're doing that is basically, as I mentioned, everything from our servers, our email servers, how we handle telephony, everything that we have for our platform is in the cloud. And what differentiates our business is we like to think of ourselves as a social HR company. HR is an industry that deals with people, but the software that they use is very non-social. It's really just about filling out forms, getting information into a database. So what we like to think of it as with Resumator is starting off with our recruiting product, trying to build HR software, specifically recruiting to start, that is both deeply integrated with the major social networks, finding interesting ways to push occurrences that occur when people interact in an HR space out into social media. But we also try to find creative ways to look at what makes other popular social networks interesting and then apply those to HR challenges. And the way we're first doing that, and in terms of the products that we provide, is our recruiting platform. So what we do is we have a social recruiting platform that basically allows businesses to basically promote their jobs through social media, collect all of the incoming resumes, and then have workflows, basically tools, processes, and data for being able to effectively manage a recruiting process, despite the fact that no one in the company typically knows what they're doing when it comes to recruiting. And the idea behind that is with our tools, we help companies hire with more confidence. From the time of identifying skills that you need in your organization to making a hire, our platform is designed to basically be a very consumer-looking application that anyone with any level of experience can jump in and start using. We've been around since mid-2009, and we have over 1,000 customers, and we're happy to say that we like to think of as an enviable customer list. Everything from Pinterest to both presidential campaigns, major presidential campaigns use our technology. 35% of the companies are high-tech companies. 65% are companies you've never heard of. And what they all like about our product is because of the way we built our technology, because we built it on a scalable cloud-based services like Amazon, RightScale managing Amazon, SendGrid for high availability email deliverability. They like the fact that either they can scale the number of people who are using our platform, or they can scale the amount of traffic that they're receiving for their jobs in a very quick and efficient manner without worrying about what our industry typically deals with, which is lag in terms of the actual application. So at a very high level, our mission is to basically go from hiring to retiring and basically build an entire HR suite that's going to give businesses basically three things. Tools that make common HR tasks, everything from requesting vacation to dealing with performance management, easier and more social. Processes that can be learned or customized by anyone. So we want to build HR software for the expert, the superman or superwoman, and also for the everyman or everywoman. And then finally, real-time data that helps these people understand how to be better at HR, because most people who deal with HR do not have HR experience. So if you're hiring and you're using an email address, come talk to me. I'm the tall black guy. Hey.
Right. Well, my name is Royce Murphy, and I'm the CEO of RealStatus. And is it this button? Yeah, there we go. RealStatus is a software company that's taken three-dimensional modeling and visualization technology from the computer games industry, and we apply that to building models of dependencies and relationships in hybrid environments. So it will show you your dependencies from your physical infrastructure through virtualized infrastructure and into infrastructure running on the cloud, and then show your application performance and your infrastructure performance on that model. So I'll talk through an example in which we're helping a customer turn confusion into clarity. And the recipe for confusion, and this is how we were greeted when we met this customer, was we've got 14,000 applications, 60,000 servers, 120,000 virtual machines, and 240,000 nodes on the network. And we don't know how all this fits together. So the recipe is to use our product called HyperGlance. Now, HyperGlance, as I mentioned, takes computer modeling technology from the games industry and visualization technology, and we build a relationship model showing those dependencies in 3 dimensions. But critically, we give you the ability to take filtered views of that. So in a bank, you can see the infrastructure supporting your equities trading application separately from the infrastructure supporting your foreign exchange trading applications. Now, these applications all utilize shared infrastructure, and everything is instrumented, but there's no way of seeing how it all pieces together. Another important thing that we're doing is we're adding a 4th dimension, which is time. So you can see how these relationships, or in transaction modeling, you can see how an application transaction evolves over time, where the errors occur, and what happens as a result. We don't replace the management tools people use. We aggregate data. So we take the virtual machine data from VMware. We take the hardware infrastructure data from SolarWinds, from Microsoft SCOM, or whatever element manager people are using. We work with the APIs of cloud-based services like Amazon's API, and we bring that together, and we stitch those together into a single end-to-end model from your hardware through to your applications. So you can see the relationships. Critically, if you have a problem, you can understand what's affected by that problem, and you can take priority decisions as operating teams based upon what the real impact is on the business. Now, we are demonstrating next door in the demo room, and it's a 3-dimensional product, so you need to see a live demo. We weren't able to win with the technology here, so I've got some screen captures, but that's not a patch on actually seeing the live software next door. So this is a model of a complete infrastructure. That blue ring in the center is router-to-router connections, which are your wide area network. That's linking together a couple of data centers, which are partially virtualized, and then branch offices, which are fully virtualized. If we zoom in, you can see where we've captured data from Amazon, and we have virtual machines that are running across different resilience zones in Amazon. Now, there's a use case here, and in this use case, the customer's having a problem with the performance of their order processing application. So they've applied a filter, and on that right-hand panel, you can see a filter highlighted called order processing. And that eliminates, essentially fades out all of the infrastructure except for those nodes that are running components of your order processing application. And the legend shows that, as you'd expect, those pink devices on your physical data center are part of your order processing application. But it also shows that there's a dependency on the CRM application that's actually running in the Amazon cloud. And you can apply filters together. So you can apply a second filter, which says, well, show me the health of my virtual machines. I want to see if there's any issue in the Amazon cloud with the CRM app that might ultimately be affecting the performance for my users of the order processing application. And indeed, one of those VMs has failed the health check, and the reason is that the CPU's been fully utilized. So that's just a very, very quick example of how HyperGlance enables our customers to build out this end-to-end model. For MSPs, service providers, this has been a really valuable tool because you can slice the world down by customer and just see the infrastructure associated with any customer. So what we're doing is we're essentially creating one relationship model to rule them all. We don't replace the management tools, but we certainly aggregate and add value to the data that they have. We have a library of collectors for a wide variety of management tools, and that's increasing day by day. We're developing, and we've talked with some people here who are helping us in this effort, developing an MSP version of HyperGlance so you can offer monitoring as a service. We already have enterprise versions in use, and the pricing is simple. It just scales on the number of nodes we model. When we previewed this product earlier last year, this was the blog comment that came out. Software like this is what I was promised when I went into computers. Thank you.
What's the button here?
That one right there.
All right.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Mark Cunningham. I'm the CEO and founder of a company called Indicee. So what we do is we're in the business intelligence space. So we're in the cloud business intelligence, which if you don't know what business intelligence is, it's reporting and analytics and dashboarding. So I've been involved in this space for about 20 years. I was originally part of a team that created a product called Crystal Reports back in the early 90s. And for those of you that are getting gray hair like me, you might remember that tool. We were the most widely distributed reporting tool at one time, and we eventually sold to Business Objects, and it's now part of the SAP stack. So one of the things that I've always looked at in sort of the BI space in general is, what's next? And enterprise BI sort of dominated the industry for a lot of years. And I think really in the last couple of years, I started thinking about how we can take the cloud and apply that to using the economic benefits of the cloud, but then combining that with a different experience that users want to be able to have when they're using technologies like this. And we talk about the consumerization of IT and those types of topics, really kind of blending those two things together. So the idea is kind of changing the model of what I call dinosaur BI, which I admit I was part of creating to a certain extent. And the idea is to really kind of change the cost and complexity model that we see today in the products that are out there from a lot of the large vendors that are very sales driven in the way that you have to actually get these technologies into organizations, and heavily professional services driven. Every BI company on the planet today is a services company. That's my belief. And I think that there's a big opportunity and a big change that can happen in the market is to shift from being a professional services BI company into actually more of an innovative product type company. So where we're starting at Indicee is really to kind of take all of those complex technologies that we have in the traditional BI world, which is you've got things like getting the data, ETL, and warehousing that data and putting it into a warehouse and then reporting on that data and dashboarding. And those are all black boxes in the old school business intelligence world. And in between each one of those black boxes, there's a bunch of people, armies of consultants that actually bolt all this stuff together. For every $1 of software we sold at Crystal, we got $4 in services. So that just gives you an idea of how much service is involved in the BI industry. So the idea of taking the cloud really starts to make things exciting because we can combine these technologies into one single stack and create an end-to-end experience and essentially take out all of the kind of the middle of all the armies of consultants and allow one individual user to experience the entire product end to end, which is really the main goal that we're going for. And what this really does is it applies an element of agility. And so an individual user doesn't need to start at the beginning of what they traditionally know of reporting, which is start with data and then reports. Instead, they could start with reports and have the system figure out what data to get. And so instead of starting at one end or the other, you can start in the middle or partway through. So it gives a much greater use of agility. And then with this, it gives the opportunity to get to what we call the mere mortals. BI has been, plagued with adoption challenges for 20 years. It's got about a 20% adoption rate. That's the number that Gartner put out in 1996. 20% is the same number today. The needle might have moved a couple of percent, but not much. So our big goal is to get to the forgotten 80%. And I think you can't do that with the current technologies. And I think the NuoDB people are kind of preaching the same, we're all preaching the same story here around there needs to be a change in this market and industry. The big problem for mere mortals is actually the data access, where the big bottleneck in business intelligence is not clicking on pretty dashboards. We can all build that stuff. The big problem is actually getting to the data, and no slide in BI would be worthy without the word big data on it today. And so when we think of big data, we think about more a variety of data, data coming from many different types of sources, various cloud sources, different types of data, slowly changing dimensional data from enterprise database systems, plus high velocity streaming type data, which is kind of the new order. So we look at that, that's a real strength of ours, is being able to mash together various types of data coming from different locations in a user experience. In BI, historically, that's all been done by code people, code writers, scripting. We want to do that in a user experience. So that's what our big focus is at Indicee. So lastly, we're at an ISV show. Why do all of you really care about any of this? The goal here is for us to actually enable business users with better BI. So as an ISV, what we have at Indicee is a Powered by Indicee program. We actually allow ISVs to get to their business users in a much more sophisticated way with business intelligence by snapping our technology into yours, all in the cloud. So you can white label our technology. We have visual components. We have APIs that essentially allow you to bolt our technology into yours. And it's something like snapping in a Google map into an app. It's the same idea. You can snap in a reporting widget and do it in an hour, and you have some BI inside of your technology. So it allows you to start small and incrementally build, which is sort of the power of the cloud that we really see. So lastly, I'll just point out we have a little booth in the pavilion. We do have a little Twitter dashboard that we're doing for fun at the conference. This actually is a combination of our real-time streaming data engine that we have, sort of our big data solution, along with our partner Pervasive, who's also here. So if you're tweeting, we're actually tracking all of the tweets and all of the hashtags. You can come by our booth and see that. We're giving away an iPad for the person that tweets the most, hashtag IndiceeDB. So get tweeting and come by and check out the dashboard, see if you're on the leader. I think that's it. Thanks.
Good. Well, I'll run through a couple of questions and then we'll get out of the way so folks can go to lunch. I'll actually start with Mark because you put up the logo of one of our former portfolio companies, SlideRocket. Thanks for working with them. So I'll take the first question over to you. So here we are. We've got infrastructure companies. We've sort of got application companies. We're talking about the future of the cloud. And I was struck by the fact that most technology revolutions are centered sort of Silicon Valley or maybe Boston, and here we are, and no one on this panel is from Silicon Valley, or at least their companies aren't. So do you think is this part of the new wave with cloud, the future of cloud, that it's everywhere now?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I live in the Silicon Valley, by the way, because I've been down here for 5 weeks straight. So I feel like I do actually live here to a certain extent. But I do think it definitely is opening a lot of doors around where you can develop these technologies. You don't have to be necessarily in the heartbeat of it. For us, I think that, I think there's sort of a location thing based on the types of technologies you're building. I mean, the two largest business intelligence companies previously were built in Canada, right? So Vancouver was where Crystal was built. We built a 3,000 person company in Vancouver, which eventually got bought. And then Cognos was back in Ottawa. So I think for us, it was actually a lot of just location of where the talent was. So, I always say to people, Vancouver is the best place to build a BI company on the planet because there's lots of talent. So that's the reason why we started there. I think the cloud stuff definitely helps as far as kind of just liberating us of where we can be. But yeah, I think it's more of the talent for us of why we're there. So.
Yeah, I'm involved in an organization called the C100 that I'll talk to you more about. And we had Salesforce bought two companies in Canada this year, and I think it's partly their SaaS cloud companies, and they could do that in a way and integrate them into their platform much easier. So let's see. Let me jump to Don. So the logos you put up, they're not your normal sort of enterprise logos. It looks like it's the future of cloud has a different customer segment in it. Mm-hmm. So 2 questions on that. Do you think that's sort of the early market dynamic, or do you think that's sort of where the cloud is heading? And second, what are the roles of channel for going after those? So we have a portfolio company, Aria Systems, that they've been doing a bunch of work lately with partnerships, channel partnerships in the cloud. Mm-hmm. They did, it's CSC in Europe, and they just announced Cognizant. So is this something you're seeing as well, that we now have? I mean, Salesforce believed for a long time, the message around Salesforce was there are no SIs, there are no channel, it's all direct, it's all sort of comes from Salesforce. Is that true? Is that changing? What's the reality there?
Okay, so I think the first question, I think that because we deal with nothing but small and medium-sized businesses, is the fact that I believe that what the cloud is doing is it's empowering a future wave of software specifically targeting early stage, growth stage, and small businesses. So I'd say companies between 25 and 500 employees. I think you think about back in the day, it was very difficult to create a $49 price point and sell it to someone because of just the sheer cost of spinning up a specific server for that particular customer. But nowadays, I mean, our server cost us $150 a month up until 18 months ago. So we're able to basically offer our service at a very dramatic scale at a very affordable rate. So I think, I kind of think of the idea of enterprise software as disappearing. I think, with the fact that I think the average consumer is becoming more sophisticated with the fact that the business software they're using sucks. It's just complicated. It's ugly because they're using mobile apps and they're seeing how important UI and UX is to having a positive relationship with software. I think that over time what we're going to see is that these smaller companies that are employing more and more of these earlier stage companies, and some of these companies are 3 years old, 4 years old. MailChimp's a pretty old company, but they're embracing UI and UX more. I think that that's going to lead to a shift towards delivering very easy to use software for small businesses. The second question, I believe, what was it again? It was channels. Yeah, I think that it's going to be more about trying to tap into the sales ecosystem. A lot of times, like for us, it's more about going after people who are further up the stack, who know that the ground floor to HR is hiring. So in other words, in terms of trying to develop channels, it's usually not necessarily technology-based at first. It's the sales folks realizing that it's easier for them to bring customers into their product by going through us. So in many ways, I can say too, what's also nice is the fact that these tools are built in the cloud. Many times they're on the same type of infrastructure, so making those connections is much easier. I think it's much harder for us to work with an older organization than it is for a company that's under 5 years of age. So I would say the older the organization, the more it's sales oriented. The younger the organization, the more we can do a very, very, very directly tied together, integrated partnership. So,
and Royce, what's your view on channels? How are you going to market on that?
The channels are very important for us. The process of aggregating data from other management tools, if it's off-the-shelf management tool, then if we don't have the collector, we'll write the collector. But in the larger organizations, there often are proprietary tools or their own sort of CMDBs that they are using to bring data together. And bringing that data into HyperGlance is generally a custom consulting project. So our software does involve channel, and particularly as MSPs are adopting HyperGlance and providing monitoring as a service, channel is very important for us as we see HyperGlance increasingly being embedded into the businesses of our customers.
And as you think about, so you're describing now a world where you have these cloud applications that you're sort of bringing together. Whose responsibility is it at the end of the day when all these people are in different clouds and different, I mean, how, if you're the center point, are you the throat to choke on someone else's infrastructure? How do you deal with that problem?
Well, I think we help them find the right throat. The thing that we saw in the presentation this morning from Saugatuck, the analyst firm, was that the majority of US firms in particular, established firms, are implementing hybrid environments where some of their applications are still running in their own data centers, but they're utilizing either private or public clouds or software as a service in clouds, and stitching that together, which is great. However, who holds the responsibility for the actual end-to-end experience of the user? So each component provider will say, I'm fine. My network's fine, my software as a service is fine, my cloud service is fine. But if the experience of the user is poor, then there ultimately is a responsibility to sort that out. And the people with that responsibility are our customers, because they genuinely need to see that end-to-end view and add up the latencies so that the end user experience is understood and where the problem bottleneck is rapidly found and solved.
Okay, and I'll jump to Barry for one last question. So Hummer Winblad, just for those of you who don't know, we're a software-only venture firm. We're invested in Barry, so that's my disclosure. And we used to have a saying around our firm that databases have been dead for 20 plus years. It's a consolidated industry, sort of 4 major players, sort of nothing has happened for an awfully long time. And then all of a sudden there was this sort of explosion. Barry, can you convince me that this is bigger than just something that's all marketing speak and is actually a trend? Can you talk about why this force is sort of bigger than just a naming convention, if you will?
Yeah, it's actually quite an interesting comment that you made, that it's true to look, if you look at the pie chart of databases deployed in the world 5 years ago, there were really only maybe 4, maybe 5 vendors that dominated it, and people thought at the time that it had consolidated in the same way that microprocessors had or something like that. And I think that was your reference. Now you see a great deal of innovation. I just noticed that Boston seems to have maybe a dozen different database companies that are starting up. What's all this innovation about? And it's really about this design center of the cloud, and by which we mean both public clouds, but also internal data centers, private clouds, if you like, that are wanting to run on commodity machines, are wanting to have scale as one of the key design points, are wanting to run in multiple locations and so forth. And we've had this wonderfully successful technology for 30 years. SQL, by the way, is the most successful programming language of all time. Name me something else which has been around for more than 30 years and which is still the primary choice for building systems. And so it's a very powerful language, and the systems that have been built around it have been very powerful. They simply have got to a sort of an inflection point in infrastructure, which is very different. And now we're having to target these geo-distributed systems built on commodity hardware, running different operating systems in different locations, and people are wanting the data rates, the data sizes, the concurrency levels, the requirements for latency on the user side, all are higher than they were before. The complexity of the applications themselves are higher than they were before. We've simply got to a different set of requirements. And what's required is a new architecture. I didn't have time to talk about this, but I believe very firmly, whether it's us or anyone else, there is going to be a 21st century architecture for databases, and that's the big idea that I referred to in the presentation.
With that, I think I'll round of applause for our panelists here, and it looks like lunch has moved into the back. So thank you, everyone. Thanks, guys.